decision to turn a blind eye is a structural barrier to police reform.
Good evening. And first at 5, lawyers for the family of a man shot and killed by Tigard police are sounding the alarm after they say an independent review of the deadly shooting identified significant missteps by both the officers involved and detectives looking into the case. Thanks for joining us. I'm David Molko.
And I'm Laurel Porter. This whole thing centers around the shooting death of Jacob McDuff. He was reportedly experiencing a mental health crisis at the time of his death. Let's bring in Mike Benner. And Mike, McDuff's family has already received millions of dollars from the city of Tigard because of what happened.
Yeah, $3.8 million to be exact, Laurel. As part of that settlement, the city agreed to cooperate with this independent review and analysis paid for by Jacob McDuff's estate. The cost? Approximately $34,000. The findings are laid out in this 45-page report, and attorneys for the family say the community should be outraged by what was discovered.
Don't let this be one moment.
Attorney David Park pleads for change on behalf of the family of Jacob McDuff, who was shot and killed by Tigard police in January 2021.
You need to be politically active and make your desires known to your city council and your mayor.
Park and his co-counsel say an independent review and analysis of the deadly shooting raises far more questions than answers. And it starts, they say, from the moment police responded to McDuff's apartment.
Not once did the police during their investigation consider that maybe Jacob was in a mental health crisis. It didn't even cross their minds.
Attorneys and family argue McDuff was experiencing a mental health crisis, explaining why he was hiding in the cab of his pickup truck, as shown in this graphic. You'll notice officers surrounding the vehicle. One would shoot beanbag rounds into the truck. Another would shoot actual bullets. First, 5 rounds. Then 18 seconds later, additional rounds.
He waited 18 seconds at the window, screaming, "Show me your hands," which was more than adequate opportunity to move to a position of cover and safety.
A grand jury cleared the officers of any criminal wrongdoing, but the McDuff family attorneys argue the investigation by the Washington County Major Crimes Team was botched from the start. Attorneys say right after the shooting, the officer who fired the deadly rounds sat in the same vehicle with an officer who witnessed the whole thing. This would have allowed the two to craft a specific narrative.
Now that's a huge violation of any kind of standard protocol for an investigation.
Park and his co-counsel say the predisposition to turn a blind eye is a structural barrier to police reform, and they're asking for the U.S. Department of Justice to investigate.
This is a civil rights violation when a police officer unnecessarily takes the life of a citizen, and that's what happened here.
All right, it's worth mentioning Tigard's police chief says she'll work with the Major Crimes Team to evaluate the findings of this independent review and analysis. And by the way, you can read the report in its entirety on our website, KGW.com. David.
Mike Benner in the newsroom. Thank you, Mike. Meanwhile, some police officers in Vancouver have started wearing body cameras, and eventually over the next 2.5 weeks, all officers and supervisors will have them. So Vancouver's police chief Jeff Morey told KGW that the department's budget can fund about 220 cameras. And he adds an officer will be permitted to review footage from their camera before writing up a report.
It makes us more efficient. It helps us with our report writing, make sure we gather all the details the way they were recorded. But equally important, it builds that transparency and trust with our community.
Well, last week, Salem officers also started wearing body cams. But as we have been reporting in Portland, the city and police union are at an impasse over when officers can review video. The union wants that ability in all situations, but the city says officers shouldn't be able to do so in cases that involve deadly force. An arbitrator has now stepped in to settle that dispute.
Let's take a live look now at Mount Hood from our Timberline Lodge sky camera. A lot of snow up there, and it's going to be a cold, windy, and snowy week ahead for the slopes. And we're expected to get a taste of winter weather here in the valley, too. Joe Ranieri joins us tonight near the mountain at Government Camp. And Joe, today, Mount Hood Meadows couldn't even open up because of the weather.
Exactly right, Laurel. And let's be realistic. It's not all that fun to be that high up when you have gusts anywhere from 50 to 60 miles an hour. And that's what they saw yesterday afternoon. In fact, they had to shut down some lifts earlier on Sunday, and then they couldn't even open earlier today because of the winds. But there's a chance they'll be closed for tomorrow because there's going to be another round of wind and heavy snow overnight. Now, if you're driving through here earlier, it was a holiday, obviously. A lot of people were taking a little break from the slopes up in Mount Hood Meadows and decided to spend some time up at Government Camp. It was tough to even find a place to park. There are so many people up here. Traveling over the mountain passes a piece of cake earlier today, but a very strong system arrives overnight that's going to be making driving over here almost impossible with whiteout conditions possible. Don Hamilton with ODOT says they are paying close attention to the Coast Range and the Cascades over the next couple of days. He has advice for drivers who might have to drive through this tonight or into tomorrow.
When you look at the forecast and you see that there's a storm coming, make sure you get yourself someplace safe before the storm hits. We don't want people out on the road in the middle of the storm.
Now, David and Laurel, so far today, we've been seeing mainly dry conditions. Earlier this morning, there were some light showers and it was just kind of cold. But again, that's going to be changing here over the next several hours. So if you have to head in this direction, be prepared for winter driving. And ODOT is saying, pay close attention to the roads. And just like that, who's behind me but ODOT? They'll be pretty busy over the next couple of days. Back to you guys.
All right, thank you, Joe. Let's bring in Chief Meteorologist Matt Zafino now. Matt, it sounds like plenty of action in the Cascades.
Oh, yeah.
What about the valley, though?
Yeah, those bare roads up at Government Camp will be white within about 24 hours. The valleys, it's going to be a lot like what we saw the last time, David, where we had some places get an inch or two of snow. Downtown Portland, basically nothing. There were 0.2 of an inch out of the Portland airport. So we won't see a big, massive area of snow in the valleys, but some places will get some, and it's going to get very cold. I think that may end up being the bigger story for the valleys later this week when temperatures drop into the teens. It's still 30 up at Timberline right now, so it's really mild. The cold air hasn't pushed in just yet, but it will. And the passes, here's Government Camp, above freezing there at 36 degrees. Same thing down at Sandia Pass and Willamette Pass, bare pavement, so that looks good. But here comes the weather system that'll usher in the cold air. We'll begin to see it roll in late tonight after midnight and tomorrow. Then it really gets cold Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. That's when we have our best chance of getting valley snow. This is one of our models showing snowfall forecast here, and this is interesting because it's different from one of the other models I show you frequently, the European model. This is one of the American models, and it's showing more snow for the valley than the other one, about 1.5 inches for Portland, 2.5 McMinnville, but a lot less snow up on Mount Hood. It's the opposite from some of the other guidance we get, and I'm quite certain the Cascades are going to get a lot more than 6 inches of snow, and that we'll see less than this in the valleys. But again, there's uncertainty for the valley snowfall forecast. We'll dig into that a little bit more a little bit later on. But here's something that we have far more certainty for. Elevations at 1,000 feet, even 500 feet and above will get snow. Here's Welch's on the slopes of Mount Hood at 1,300 feet elevation. Look at this. It goes up to 7 inches by Wednesday. Then not much more until we get into late in the weekend, Sunday and into Monday, and suddenly it's another 10 inches on top of that. So we're going to have a lot of snow around us. It's just the lowest elevations, the valleys. It's going to be tricky to get snow, as it so often is. But this we know, strong showers, maybe even a thunderstorm tomorrow and turning colder. Our best chance for valley snow will be on Wednesday during the day. Then it begins to get clear and very cold, lows in the teens later this week. So we'll talk more about all of this a little later, guys.
Here it comes. Thank you, Matt. Stay with us this week for continuing coverage of the latest blasts of winter from the mountains to the valley and beyond. Look for the latest forecast, snow totals on air on KGW.com and streaming on KGW+.
One person is now dead in a street racing related crash in North Portland. This happened late Saturday night on Marine Drive. 3 people went to the hospital, and today we learned one of those victims has died. Police say the victim was a street racer attending the event and was driving at the time of the crash, but was also described as a, quote, spectator. However, officers did say high speeds caused the crash between them and another car. So it's a little bit confusing right now, but we're working to piece together exactly what happened here.
Well, let's talk about addiction tonight, which continues to impact families in every part of our region, including in Central Oregon. And that is where a new program funded by Measure 110 in the Deschutes County Jail is starting to take shape. Now, Measure 110, that controversial voter-approved law that essentially decriminalized low-level drug possession. It uses taxes for marijuana sales to fund recovery services, including this program in Bend. Now, it's called Medically Assisted Treatment, or MAT for short. It's an opioid detox method that relies on medications and counseling instead of putting people through withdrawal. Though even with this new treatment option, some say they're skeptical.
I have a lot of support for the spirit of the idea, but as it's written and as it has progressed, I think it's a disaster.
Because we know with drugs coming into our community and it's been decriminalized, that more people are going to be partaking in it.
Just a couple perspectives there of many. The jail is working on hiring nurse practitioners to run the program, which they hope to launch next month.